students, we are on this part that the poet wants to say, the poet just discusses the need of maintaining peace and harmony. He gave emphasis to be quiet and to just harmless to the, excuse me just once, let me take this, just wait, excuse me. Let me take the mouthpiece. Okay. So now you are clearly audible. So we are on this way that he discusses the need of maintaining peace and harmony. He gave emphasis to be quiet and harmless to the environment, to the animals, okay, and even to the human beings also. So this poem leaves a message of universal brotherhood and peace. So this poem is actually a peace poem. So the poet here advocates peace and harmony. Even he urges people to stop all sorts of aggression. Aggression means to fight, to involve in war, and even to damage towards the environment. So here the poet urges people to stop all sorts of aggression. So this is all about the poem in a nutshell. Again I am repeating once again, as we have been interrupted due to internet connection. He discusses, so here in this poem the poet discusses the need of maintaining peace and harmony, and we have to create a feeling of mutual understanding among human beings, okay. So this is a peace poem, okay, and what we have to do, the poet urges people to maintain silence, okay. So this is all about the poem in a nutshell. Now I will just give an explanation of this poem. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. So at first you can see this poem is written in free verse. So what is free verse? The verse, the poem, it does not follow any rhyming pattern, any fixed rhyming pattern. We call it free verse. So this poem is also written in free verse and it does not follow any type of rhyming scheme, okay. So now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. This is the first two lines of the poem, and the poet wants to say, the poet asks everyone to count to 12 in their mind. Here 12 represents to the clock, to the timing of the clock, and even to the 12 months of the year. 12 represents the time of the clock and even to the 12 months of the year, okay. So the poet asks everyone to count to 12 in their mind. Why the poet is asking everyone? Because he wants all of us to be calm and still. That means we should maintain peace and harmony, okay. So in these two lines you can see the two words we will. These are placed together, we will, and it is starting with W sound. So this is an example of alliteration. So the poet here used the poetic device alliteration by the use of the words we will, W sound, okay. This is a consonant sound, the consonant sound which have been repeated twice or thrice. This is an example of alliteration. So the first two lines I have explained to you. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. So what does the poet wants to say by this stanza? The poet wants to say that people across the nation have to unite together. How they will unite? So, they shall not speak in different language. We know that language is the barrier. Why? People are residing in different parts of the world. They are speaking in different language. So, language is also a barrier. Okay. So, what we have to do? We shall not speak in different language. Rather, we shall keep quiet and we should speak the language of silence. That means the poet urges people to maintain silence. Is it clear? And not move our arms so much. ARMS. Arms here means, you can see this word in the last line of the second stanza, and not move our arms so much. Here arms means weapons, okay, weapons. So the poet even urges the people not to raise the weapons. Why? Not to fight with each other, not to argue with each other. So for at least no one should move their arms, should not raise their weapons, okay, and not to involve any type of fight or not to involve in wars, okay. So this is the meaning of this line, and by this line the poet wants to say that if we will not do this, then this will bring unity among the human beings on the face of the earth. So this will bring unity and peace. So what are the things? What we have to do? First, we have to speak in silence. That means we will not follow our language. We will not speak in different language, because language is the barrier. And we have to maintain silence. We shall keep quiet and just speak the language of silence. And even the poet further says that we should not use our weapon, we should not raise our arms, we should not raise our weapons to fight or to argue with each other. So these are the things the poet emphasized on. It would be an exotic moment. Without rush, without engines, we would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Exotic moment. What does this word mean? Exotic moment means rare situation. Exotic moment means rare situation. So the poet here just emphasizes on a rare situation. So it would be a rare exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. So what does the poet wants to say from this line? When people will not be in rush, okay? When people will not be in rush to achieve the material things one after another. So what we are actually doing? We are just running after, we are just rushing after the material wealth. We are running after the prosperity, our wealth. So we should not do like this. We should stop rushing after to achieve our material things one after another without engines. This means that engines will not work. If all the vehicles, suppose if all the vehicles, all the machines stop working, then what will happen? Then there will be sudden strange situation. There will be an exotic moment, okay, when we will not be rushing after the wealth, when all the engines, all the vehicles will stop working. There will be a sudden strange situation which will occur in this earth. So what the poet is asking? The poet is asking not to rush after the material wealth that we usually do. So what the poet is telling? The poet is telling to stop the engine. When the vehicles, factories will stop, then what will happen? It will be an exotic moment. It will be, there will be a sudden strange situation. In a sudden strangeness, why it is strange? Because it has not been happened before. It has not been happened earlier, so it is called sudden strangeness. So from this line, the poet wants to say that if we will follow this, then the world will experience sudden strangeness. The world will experience a rare situation when there will be no engines working. Even the people, the human beings will no longer rush after the wealth. Okay? So from this line, from the second stanza, you can see, let's not, let's stop. The two consecutive lines are starting with let. Okay, this is known as anaphora, the repetition of the words in the consecutive lines. We call it anaphora. Okay, and in the third stanza, you can see we would. We would, third stanza, third line, you can see we would. W sound, again W sound is coming. The same consonant sound has been repeated. This is an example of alliteration. Okay? So, fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hard hands. So, the poet further says in the fourth stanza that fisherman will also stop. The fisherman would not harm any animals or whales. Why? Because the poet is urging the people not to harm the animals, because they were being hunted for the purpose of food or trade. So, the poet is urging the fishermen not to harm the whales in the sea. And the man gathering salt would look at his hard hands. So, by this line, the poet emphasizes, even the poet urges the people to come down, okay, to keep silent, to come down, as they can stop and what they have achieved or lost. So, what we have to do? We have to introspect ourselves, we have to observe ourselves, we have to examine ourselves. What are our actions, what we are doing, what we have achieved and what we have lost in our life. We have to understand this, we have to introspect our lives. Okay. So, here by this line, the poet wants to say that the man who gathers salt, whose hands are hard, he wants everyone to stop for a while, to keep silent, in order to just feel of their achievement, how much they have lost and how much they have achieved their materialistic things. So, what we have to do? At first, the poet urges people to stop harming the animals, to stop harming the whales, the marine animals, okay, in the sea, because it will affect the environment. After that, the poet urges the people to introspect ourselves, to look after our work, to see ourselves, to examine ourselves and to observe ourselves, what we have achieved and what we have lost. So, by this line, the man gathering salt would look at his hard hands, because the man who is involved in collecting the salt, his hands would be hard. So, the poet is asking all the people, all the human beings, his fellow human beings, to just introspect themselves, to see, to observe themselves what they have achieved and what they have lost. So, I have completed the first fourth stanza. If you are having any question, any problem, please ask. Anybody? Anyone? Okay, let me continue to the next stanza. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. So what is the actual message of the poem? I have already discussed with you. I have already said that the poet is actually advocating peace and harmony. The poet advocates peace and harmony. This is a peace poem. Okay. So here the poet wants to say, or the poet wants to reveal, that the people who are exploiting the green wealth of nature, green war means we are depleting the nature, we are depleting the resource of nature. Okay. So the people who are exploiting the green wealth of nature by deforestation, by mining, by fishing, and the soldiers who are raising their arms, who uses weapons to kill their fellow human beings, what we have to do? We have to take some time, we need some free time, we have to be silent, and we have to just maintain some time to introspect ourselves, to see ourselves, to examine ourselves into the consequences of our actions, that what are the work we are doing. We are doing nothing, we are just destroying our environment, we are just ruining the livelihood of human beings. We are breaking the universal brotherhood. So here the poet advocates, okay, the poet advocates the universal brotherhood, the sense of mutual understanding, love, peace and unity among ourselves. So here the poet wants to say that the people who are involving themselves in damaging the environment, even we are just killing our fellow human beings, we have to see ourselves, we have to introspect the consequences of our actions. So victory with no survivors would put on clean clothes. So the phrase put on clean clothes means the poet wants them to adopt a new approach towards our life, to put on new clothes. This is the phrase which means the poet wants to say that to adopt a new approach towards our life. Why? Why we have to adopt a new approach towards our life? Why you have to put on clean clothes? Because we have to realize that killing the human beings and even just destroying the nature is not a mark of victory, is not a symbol of triumph. We are only spreading bloodshed, nothing else. We are just destroying our environment. That means we are ruining ourselves. We are just leading to the path of a doomsday. We have to think ourselves, we have to introspect ourselves, what are the actions we are doing, and walk about with their brothers in the shade and doing nothing. He wants all of us to be united as one. Okay? Why? Because we have to consider our enemies as our brothers. This means that the poet here is promoting peace, unity and universal brotherhood. So from this stanza we understood that we have to put on a clean cloth. That means we have to adopt a new approach towards our life. Why? Because we have to introspect our own actions. We have to think, we have to realize that killing our fellow human beings in war and just damaging our environment is not a symbol of victory. Okay, we are just moving towards the path of doomsday. Doomsday means we are just on the way towards destruction, nothing else. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Here the poet wants to say total inactivity means death. But the poet does not want to confuse stillness with total inactivity. If you will not involve any work, then it will lead to destruction, it will lead to death. So the poet does not want us to stop our work, but what we have to do, we have to take some time and we have to analyze the results of our deeds. Life is what is about, I want no truck with death. Here the poet wants to say, the poet does not want to see people being killed due to their greed of, what is their greed? Due to their greed of money or for expansion of territories. Why we are fighting? Why there was a war between India and China? Due to the expansion of territories, due to money, due to wealth. We are rushing after the material wealth, material pleasure. We should not do it like this. We have to introspect ourselves, we have to realize ourselves, we have to examine ourselves that what are the actions we are doing and what are their consequences. So here the poet requests people not to involve in war. This means this war that we are involving, it is not achieving anything. Okay, so victory, we want victory, but in this war no one is left alive. So what is our actual victory? Why we are rushing after material wealth? Okay, so we have to think ourselves what we are doing. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, so it would be better if they give themselves rest for some time. Why we have to take rest? To introspect, to examine ourselves, so that they may do nothing. Okay, a huge silence can do a lot of good things. If you are not involving in any type of work, you will be silent, your mind will be silent. During that time you could introspect yourselves. When we are disappointed at not understanding ourselves or threatening ourselves with death, that means we are not understanding what are the work we are doing and what are its consequences. So we need to introspect ourselves. So here also the poet means to advocate, the poet wants to advocate or advocating peace, unity, universal brotherhood among the fellow human beings which are on earth. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Again I am repeating this line. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. So here the poet suggests to take a learning from nature. We have to learn from nature. We have to learn from our mother earth. What we have to learn? In winter, everything seems freezes, everything becomes lifeless, but after some time, in spring season, everything changes again and everything just comes back to life. So what we have to learn? We have to learn from nature that we have to pause, we have to keep silent, we have to pause and introspect ourselves. Why? Because we have to understand the purpose of our life, the purpose of our actions towards our earth. So it will be like rebirth of our soul. If we will understand ourselves, if we will introspect ourselves, this means that it will be just like rebirth of our soul. Now the last two lines are left. Now I will count after 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. So here again the poet asks once again to take pause and to count till 12 in their mind. Why? Because we have to calm down ourselves, we have to pacify ourselves. Why? Because we have to move towards, you can see this line, and I will go. That means that the poet wants to go forward the path towards peace and harmony. Okay? So this is all about the poem. So the message here depicts that the poem leaves a simple message of universal brotherhood and peace, and it urges people to stop all sorts of aggression that we are doing on the earth. Okay? I hope you have understood the chapter.